But yeah, what's up, Cave? Episode 2, test run. It's your boy Groovy Mike, aka the Groovy One, aka Groovy Ralphie, aka Fuck It. Go ahead, Cave. It's all up to you.
Hey, welcome back to the fucking motherfucking podcast. It's your boy AirQuest, aka 3-Point Phenom, aka the King of Trick Shots in Arizona, aka Quest Sparrow. That's just what they call me. Got this Mountain Dew shirt at Walmart, dropped a hot $7.50 on it. Hopefully Mountain Dew will sponsor us someday. But we're out here.
There's a few people that might want to test you on that King of Trick Shot thing.
YouTube 3-Point Phenom. I mean, come on now. I'll take anybody out here. Got a 60-foot wet ball, pulling from half court. Let's play pig. Let's play test run for a sponsorship. Anybody who wants to fucking support the podcast. But yeah, I'm the King of Trick Shots in Arizona. That's kind of undeniable at this point.
Sure. I got to start off the podcast with this. Ali, Jordan, Tiger, Serena, and Brady. I'm just going to leave that there. That's really not a topic of discussion here, but that's what I'm going to stick with as my top 5 of all time.
Top 5 what?
Greatest players.
Athletes? Or just in their sport?
Athletes. Even though that's not for the topic today, but that's just what I'm just going to say.
Okay. Well, do you mind if I rattle off a handful? I'm gonna say Worm from Coach Carter, Ty Crane. Not fucking.
That's your 1 and 2.
Fucking Ty Crane's the best athlete. There's only one Ty Crane, even though LeBron James wasn't even born when the movie was put out. When the movie was supposed to be happening, but I think Tiger.
They say that was based off. Chandler Williams says that was based off him, not Chandler Williams.
Tyson Chandler, yeah.
Tyson Chandler says that movie was based off of him.
I mean, Tyson Chandler was nasty in high school. Go Dominguez.
Not high school.
I'm saying go look at his tape out of high school. I mean. That boy was a problem.
I mean, there was a lot of people nasty out of high school. They were just trashing the league.
Jared Bayless, your boy. I'm gonna throw him in here. Get him on the pod. Get my boy Jared Buckets on the podcast.
Okay, now we talking money.
That's your boy, Doc. See, we're a little. I've been sipping some Mountain today. We're a little, off our rocker, but this is what is going to be test run. We're grooving it out today.
For sure. But go ahead, give me your 5.
Oh, fucking athletes. Put me on the spot. I'm going Tiger, Eldrick Woods. I don't know if I can throw Tom in there. That's a little recency bias. I think Leonard Fournette led them to a championship. That's just the Jaguar fan in me.
It's just nitpicking at this point.
Michael, Tiger, Wayne Gretzky. You could say Tom, and then Michael Phelps. I got to throw Michael Phelps in there.
I guess you could throw Phelps in there, but I mean, swimming.
Tim Duncan.
I'm just saying. I don't know. I guess. I mean, so I guess I could see your point because I was about to make the same point with Brady. So you can't argue. What has he got? 17 gold fucking medals.
Yeah, and
he has what? I think he's a 20-time Olympian. He's placed almost every time I think he's been in there. So I get it. I can see why you would throw him in there. Someone would argue Usain Bolt, not me. I'm not gonna argue that.
That is an argument.
In there, but because I feel like Olympics, they're literally just every 4 years, and we don't count the other things that they're in, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know of the standings that they have.
In the meantime,
or the 3 years prior, I don't know any of that shit. So I mean, but that's just me.
I saw a thing. It was Usain Bolt. I don't know. It was a meme or whatever. He only ran in his entire Olympic career for 2 minutes or some shit like that. But he trains his whole life for just those 2 minutes to make all that bread and all those accomplishments. And so technically, we don't see all the work they put in to keep their body right. The best of the best of the best. It's a nonstop 40-year grind.
Oh, for sure. I mean, shout out to my fiance, but if we ever get her on there, she's actually pretty well-renowned track runner here in Arizona. If we were to talk track, I would get her on here, but that'd be another time. But shout out, love you, babe. So I get it. Just those 2 minutes, that is impressive. I mean, they trained their whole life for that, like that specifically. So I get the intensity, the willingness to want to be great at just that thing. So I can't knock them for it. Someone will put them there, just not me.
You Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps? You talking or both?
Both. But I get it. I get Olympians. I mean, that's where I think athletes. That's where it started. I mean, if you look back in, supposedly history tells us that ancient Greece and all that, the Olympics back then, where they were fighting lions and running chariots and shit.
Gladiator shit.
So that's what they tell. And Greek, whatever that wrestling is, like that was the original, like supposed Olympics. So I get it. Like that's where I think a lot of like the greatest athletes originated from. At least that's what we think of it as. So I can't knock that. It's just they're not in my top 5 of all time. But to my point, so I see your point with Phelps. And that brings me to my point with Brady. He literally is the only person to have 7. No NFL team, no NFL player, no one has 7 championships. And that says a lot. Like that's impressive. Like football to be a team sport and to be, and I don't know shit about football whatsoever. I do know Tom Brady. So, and I know championships as far as like what we see on TV and stuff like that. And if we hold the Bulls franchise to a higher standard in basketball, and we hold like the Celtics and the Lakers to a high standard, and those are the 3 teams that come to mind whenever like we think basketball. So, and I think, man, I'm not a Cowboys fan whatsoever. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know shit about football. But like I said, I know winning, and I know a lot of people hold the Cowboys to a high standard. But Tom Brady, I think that says something. Like to win 7, and then to be, I think, not the first quarterback to win, I think, on a different team, but the first to win the MVP on a different team as a quarterback. I think he's the first to do that.
You know,
slept on. There, no one's brought. Maybe they have brought that argument up, but I haven't heard shit about that, and so they're sleeping on that at the age he is.
I love hearing you talk football because I know you don't know shit about it.
And this sound weird from someone who knows football.
Well, and I never played a day of competitive football in my life, but I do believe I can make the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad as a quarterback or backup tight end. Hit up the email address if we need some depth in Jacksonville. But no, Brady, talk football real quick. Brady, a lot of people thought it was Belichick in New England. Now, almost with all sports, you can go through the titles and see, you can pinpoint like, well, if Ray Allen doesn't make that 3 ball, LeBron doesn't have that championship against the Spurs. Moments where if this happens, they don't get over the hump. And Miles Jack wasn't down. I have to say that as a Jacksonville Jaguar diehard. I don't even know if you know what that means, but in the AFC Championship game in 2017, Miles Jack stripped, I believe, now I can't, it's so far removed. I tried to put that out of my mind, but he stripped the running back and might have been James White. And he recovered the fumble. And then the refs blew the whistle dead when he had nothing but green grass in front of him. And we would have been up 20 in the 4th quarter, game over. Jacksonville Jaguars are going to their first ever Super Bowl. Tom Brady doesn't win that year. So actually he didn't win that year anyway because Philadelphia won. But point being, so it was that year where Philadelphia did the Philly special against him. And then Nick Foles ended up coming to Jacksonville.
Oh, you're talking about recently. I'm thinking,
yeah.
I'm my bad. I'm thinking Donovan McNabb era. I'm like,
oh yeah, no, not.
That's how much I don't know about football.
Not McNabb, who hoops over at Lifetime Fitness down the road from me, but no. So point being, there's a bunch of those plays that you can point to that could make or break someone's career accolades and pedigree. And Tom Brady to win 7, even though I think New England, shout out to any New England Patriot fans listening, I think they are fucking cheaters up in Foxborough. They turn off the microphones, in the radio for the opposing teams. They deflate balls. They record practices. I mean, we can go all day on this, but They did
if
win
you don't get
championships.
caught, is that really cheating?
I mean, if you're not first, you're last. But like, they
Like,
did get caught. That's the fucking problem. Like, so who knows what they've done that they haven't gotten caught for. But so then when Tom Brady leaves and goes to the Bucks, and they were 7-5 halfway through the year, pretty much. And then New England kind of imploded without a quarterback, and a bunch of players opted out on defense. The fact that Tom Brady won this championship, albeit with a loaded Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, they were fucking loaded. I'm telling Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard goes down with
I know
injury.
the names. You don't got to tell me.
I don't know if you do know the names.
Mike Evans from Texas Tech, play with your boy Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football.
Pretty sure it was Texas A&M.
Heisman winner, John. Like I said, I know somewhat of others,
right.
But I mean, I get it. I understand they're stacked. That comes with luck. So was the Chiefs, but they had people hurt. So I get it. It's sometimes it's luck. You have to be lucky to win. You know what I'm saying? So I get it.
But not taking away anything from Tom. He did what he needed to do. He played really well at the end of the year. He definitely earned it. And he had to go through really good teams. Not like he cakewalked to the Super Bowl and then played Mahomes and the Chiefs, who, did you watch the game?
Yeah.
Because it was, as a football fan,
it was a snooze fest.
It was a snooze fest to like the casual fan for sure.
I think to your football fan too. I mean, unless you're a Bucks fan or a Brady fan, I don't think you wanted to watch that shit.
Right. I mean, I have a little affinity for good defensive line play. That sounds pretty whack. Like to the casual.
I get it. No, like I agree with that, because even though I'm not a real I watch football here and there.
Right.
But it's not something. It's never my go-to. I never played the sport, but no, I do like a good game. I like to see when a game's close, especially the Super Bowl. Like, I want to see that be a good game, just how I would like there to be a close game in the NBA Finals or during the finals. I like there to be close games because I think that solidifies a lot of things. But man, 7. Oh, but I gotta stop you real quick. So, if you were gonna use that point, and if you're gonna use this point of Bill Belichick with Brady, still went on to win, and then go back to the last pod where the Spurs haven't been shit since Tim Duncan left. And shout out to my boy Zay. He said he somewhat agreed with you. He was like, if you put KG in that situation, he's winning just as much. I still don't think so.
Sounds like Zay's my boy now, actually. So I agree wholeheartedly with that statement. And also, you could say the same thing with KG. Once he left Minnesota, they were complete dog shit as well. And he went and won a championship. So
they've been dog shit since he was there, though. They literally had only 2 good years. 2 good years.
And they've had a lot of high picks.
And we could say that when Marbury left too. That goes. We got to talk about that.
Would you take Terrell Brandon over Marbury, though?
Who?
Terrell Brandon.
I have no clue Terrell Brandon.
Terrell Brandon, the point guard. Terrell Brandon, he played for the Cavs. He played for the Timberwolves. That dude was cold. I suggest after this pod, you go back and watch some Terrell Brandon tape. An old point guard head. Shout out to our Heinous if you're listening right now. You know what I'm talking about, Terrell Brandon.
And just to be clear, I am a basketball savant, but yeah, some people I just don't know. I think there'll be some people we both don't understand.
It was also 25 years ago when he played. So no, but Zay, shout out. I mean, we're cool now. Like KG, he revolutionized the game. You can check the last podcast. Ooh. Kevin Garnett, the big ticket. That's my dog. So if you put Tim Duncan on that Timberwolves team, he's not doing what KG did. He doesn't have the ability to do what KG did from a playmaker, from an athletic standpoint.
Playmaking. Hold on, wait, time out. Tim Duncan was a playmaker. As much mentally sound as he was, he hit some big game-winning shots that were just like, how the fuck did he pull that out his ass?
And I'm not disputing that, but his system was better. The offense they ran was, I don't even know if Minnesota ran it.
Doesn't look like it right now, and the same coach is there.
Well, because they don't have the same horses.
I mean, that's true. That's true. I'll give you that. But that year, like I said, I don't know. And then, like I said, I did make the point where if Leonard never got hurt, maybe we're talking differently. But
right.
did, and we still have yet to see anything happen because people keep saying that the Spurs are going to still be this and that. Not us, but like some
talking heads, yeah,
say that. But we have yet to see shit from the Spurs as of 2000 and what was it, 18?
Well, if Kawhi doesn't get hurt that year and they win it all, are we talking about Kawhi in a different light as well? I mean, it's a little tangent, but I mean,
maybe. I mean, we could, but I mean, I think Toronto solidified that, in my opinion. The reason I say that, even though they still played against a juggernaut of a team. Whether or not KD was there, or that was still the same team that beat LeBron in 2015.
And then Clay got hurt that series too.
He got hurt. I think it was game.
Was game?
That's when it was the last game because that's when KD got hurt, and then Clay literally got hurt later in the game.
So
he went up for a layup and he tore his ACL.
I think, but also too, like he had to go through that 76ers team, that Bucks team. Like people like to shit on the East, but the top of the East is still good. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like they don't have
there's still NBA teams. I mean, it's not like they're just fucking scrubs. I mean, yeah, the bottom of the barrel of the NBA, we could consider scrubs. But I mean, most playoff teams in general, except for maybe like the Bobcats and not the Bobcats, the Hornets. That's how far I keep thinking. That's how trash they are to me.
How trash
that I had to think of the Bobcats. That's how far it kind of goes back to me with the Hornets, and like the Hornets probably one of the most trash playoff teams we've seen.
No, I agree. How did we get here?
Well, we're talking about Tom. I had because you're talking about how and it's Thomas 7th Super Bowl champ Brady. But we're talking about how you brought the point how Belichick, people thought it was Belichick, and then he went on to win. And then I brought the point, well, like we saw that you tried to claim that it was Pop's system, but we yet to see that system work too. Now, there.
I agree, and I don't. Every time someone wants to say shit about Tom Brady, I can't stop thinking about him kissing his sons on the mouth. Like he kisses his sons on the mouth, and they're not like 3 or 4 years old.
I mean, that's not an odd thing to happen. I think a lot of
I feel it.
Just culture. I mean, someone could set me straight, but I know a lot of like Italians that do that.
Is he Italian? I thought he was just white.
I'm Italian, but I mean and a lot of people do that. That's his thing.
He was on a massage table one time and he says, little Brandon or whatever his name was, like, give Papa a kiss. And it's just weird. And so I can't not think of Tom and think of that. In a sense, that has nothing to do with shit. But,
so do you think of Lil Wayne like that too?
Does he do that to Birdman?
That was a thing?
I did see a photo. Point being, Tom Brady, he's the GOAT. I think there's more talented quarterbacks pound for pound, but Tom Brady's the GOAT. Similar to how like LeBron is the GOAT of this era, or I guess you could say 2010 to 2020. So
is your guy Joe Montana?
No, my guy. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady pound for pound. They haven't invested in.
I don't know. I guess you could say that. I know Jay Cutler, the first Jay Cutler from Chicago days. This fool they claimed how much of a beast he was athletically. Look what happened. Granted, he didn't win shit at all.
Right.
But like my point to that being, and maybe this doesn't make any sense, but my point to that being is that you said that Aaron Rodgers was just a beast. It's just true. They say that he's just athletically gifted. I mean, to make some of the shit happen. I mean, when the Pacers played the Cardinals in one of the years that Arizona went to the finals, went to the Super Bowl.
Oh, when it was Pittsburgh
and he made shit happen. But granted, I forgot who the fuck it was missed the pass in the end zone, but he made shit happen. Like I saw greatness that day, and he made some shit happen, but they just ended up losing because whoever he threw the ball to and that Hail Mary pass just didn't catch it. But it is what it is.
Well, what I love about football, and I know this is a basketball podcast, but I'm willing to talk football.
It's a test run podcast.
Right. True. Yeah, we could talk about anything and everything. But talking football, what I love about football compared to basketball is it's a game of centimeters, and you need everybody to be on the same page philosophically, and then everyone to do their job. If one person messes up, it can set the whole team back. Turnovers. I know a lot of just casual people who like sports think football is somewhat of a slower paced game, and basketball is extremely up and down. But football, it's so specific and so complex. Yet,
for sure,
it could be considered kind of simple, but you can't just have, you're better, faster, stronger. The coordinators and the actual offensive and defensive game plans matter so much. You can have all the right players better than your opponent, but if your coach, your coordinator is better, then it doesn't matter how good you are compared to your opponent. So you see a lot of coaches who, are really good when they have really good players and really bad when they have really bad players. But then some coaches can, bring the best out of a bunch of shitty players. And
that's what you're coaching for. So
yeah, and in the NBA, it's just kind of ride or die with the best players. You know what I mean?
Well, there's you're like talent in the NBA can't beat anyone, but I get it.
Yeah, it's a different game, but I mean, like a team that doesn't have any like superstar on it has zero chance of winning a championship in the NBA. There's only, how many teams would you say that can truly win a championship right now? Like less than 10, football, right? I mean, in basketball in the NBA.
Oh, well, shit.
5?
Probably, yeah. I get 5. I wouldn't give more than that, but that's 1/6 of the league.
Right. So like everyone else has zero chance of winning a championship, and let alone beating a team 4 out of 7 games to advance in a series. Because maybe any given night in the NBA, they're all professionals. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Although I know some people in the NBA are not deserving of necessarily being in the NBA more than other people we've played with and against. But everyone in the NBA is a professional, and they're all good and talented basketball players. But there's not parity in the league.
There's levels to everything. I get it. Right.
And so that's another reason why I like football as well, because of any given Sunday. It truly is, I had a bet for the Chiefs against the Buccaneers, and I lost that bet.
Were you wrong? Boy, what I've learned, you never bet against greatness. And to me, and like I said, I don't know shit about football, but to me, that performance proved a lot that last year's Super Bowl wasn't shit. That's just what it proved to me, because they looked scared. They looked like someone just punched them in the mouth.
See, to me, I feel like it looked like they were unprepared offensively.
Punched in the mouth.
And the fucking Buccaneers' defensive game plan was really good, and they got horses all on that D.
I had to stop you real quick. And I get, and whatever happened to Andy Reid's son, that was tragic. And right. I get maybe his mind was somewhere else than on this fucking football game. So that could play a role.
And he calls the plays. And the offensive game plan just didn't look like it was what we've seen of the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has never played in a game in the NFL where he hasn't scored a touchdown, where his team hasn't scored a touchdown. And so it finally happened. It could have been just crazy circumstance. The gods weren't Brady.
Do you think that goes to him being the shitty leader? So I feel like to Tom Brady, I think he would rally the troops. Because he's your head coach, but that's just me.
Because I think Tom Brady, and I don't want to knock Tom Brady. Like you said, you can't bet against greatness. I was more so betting for Mahomes and Andy Reid and what the Chiefs can do philosophically on offense.
Right.
But that Buccaneers team, I know they had some, early struggles, and like I said, they were 7-5 at one point, and then they won 7 straight. But that team is loaded. Like they don't need Antonio Brown and Gronk and Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy. They just got all these big names, and I mean, kudos to them. It's not gonna, it's a 1-year thing, maybe 2 years, maybe they run it back. But Tom Brady, it's sort of like the NBA where you got players who want to team up, like with LeBron, or they go and get all they collect the the best role players from other teams and stuff on their teams because you want to ring chase. But like Brady, players truly do like value Brady and Bruce Arians and what they had going down there in Tampa. And I don't think Brady needed Antonio Brown to go down there and play, and Leonard Fournette gets cut a week before the season and says, oh, let's get Leonard Fournette, a top 5 pick who rushes for 1,000 yards. And whether you know these guys or not, you know their names, and they're loaded. And defensively, they were loaded too. Todd Bowles called a heck of a game in the Super Bowl. Shout out to Todd Bowles, former Cardinals coach.
I guess we got to agree to disagree. But you brought up a point.
Ring chasing?
No, that just goes to a different topic. I do want to go down this rabbit hole since you said that football is a complex sport. I do believe that. I do believe X's and O's, like those X's and O's are definitely difficult. Just looking at a fucking football, like someone drop a fucking football play, that looks crazy to me. My idea of X's and O's is really simple compared to that. I want to go down this rabbit hole. So what do you think it's the most complex sport to play?
Well, thinking compared to basketball, baseball,
all sports.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think because like, what other complex, chess? Are you going to count?
Well, that's not. I mean, that's a thinking game.
Team sport.
Yeah, well, not even team sport, just sport. I don't think. I mean, you could consider, I guess, chess a game or a sport, but let's just go. I guess.
Well, I think point being, yeah, I do think it's the most complex sport.
Well, then I have to stop you because I think golf, tennis, and hockey, ice hockey, are more complex than basketball.
Oh, than basketball? I thought you said football.
I mean, not basketball, my bad, than football.
Okay, then how?
But even basketball, though. The reason, you know how hard it is to golf? I mean, I know you golf, right?
I won a tournament. I got second in a tournament when I was 9 years old because I got a 9 on hole 1. I should have won that. And maybe my career is different. Maybe I choose golf because I'm like, And
I know tons of people that can golf, but
fun sport.
To be like masters golf good, I think that's incredible. I think that's crazy. I think basketball, I think it's one of the most simplistic sports you can play as far as like going up. Anyone can play that. You know what I'm saying? You could catch a game at the park or something, and whether they're good or not, anyone could still play it. Football, you have flag football. You know what I'm saying? And granted, we're just talking general now. I think you could play those kind of things. I don't think golf, you could just go and play and like, yeah, you could go and drink and hang out with your friends and stuff, but it's like to be competitive, I think that's hard. You have to be somewhat good, like, and know the mechanics. I think the mechanics are the hardest, like, because you can have someone who's athletic, I feel like, and like think that they can golf until they go out there and swing, or they go to Top Golf and like think they can play, and then they feel like, oh
shit, it's hard.
Yeah, I think golf is really, really complex.
Well, I mean, if anyone's ever seen Charles Barkley try to golf, yikes. But no, I have to disagree. I think golf might require more individual skill, but I don't think it's more complex because I think from a strictly game plan, X's and O's type of thing. Again, and I never played, full disclosure. I've never played full competitive football. The highest I've ever done in football is PE, 9th grade. I had 8 touchdowns in 7th hour one day. But if you go in and look at what it takes at the quarterback position to know what everyone's job is on the field, when you look at schemes, it is so complex. It's basically chess on steroids in live action, with so many variables about what players can do and what they can't. And again, like in the Super Bowl, you see how you can straight up get out schemed and out coached, even with a better team, so to speak. And that, I think, just makes football and the NFL specifically just different than any other sport. And I think the quarterback position is the most like significant and difficult position to play in all of sports. And a lot of people would agree with me on that.
They would, but I don't. I still think it's like to hit from the green, to hit like that, and like to really either get an eagle or a birdie. That shit seems hard. Like just watching it, I'm like, cause I watch golf. I've never been, but like I'm really kind of into golf. The only reason I haven't been, I have no clue why I haven't been. I really want to go.
You've
Anyone?
never golfed?
Your boy? No.
You've never golfed at Top Golf?
Goofy golf. Yeah, I've done that shit, but I mean,
But it's not competitive.
it's not golf. But then again, my version of golf is going to the range and I'm just sitting there drinking and smoking cigars the whole time. But that's my version of golf. But no, I would like to go. But that's neither here nor there. I just feel like watching it, something and being able to hit. I mean, maybe you can, maybe some people can, but hit 300, 400 feet. That I don't think that's just that simple.
Well, so I have a friend, Dylan Brewer. Shout out Brewski if you're listening. You're definitely not. I haven't talked to you really in a handful of years.
You're just shouting out ghosts at this point.
Shout out my boy Dylan Brewer from Desert Ridge. He was good enough to be a pro golfer, but the thing with golf is it's a little bit similar to basketball. Situation, and then having money helps to get sponsors and to get in the tournaments necessary to get on the pro tour. But with golf, like I said, from a skill standpoint, if you learn the technique of golf, you could go out there and hit the ball hard, or you can be decent, hit the ball straight or whatever. But it's the consistency that it takes to never mess up, to be able to putt, to chip. Like I think golf is extremely difficult for the average person. Joe Ward was trying to get on the senior tour. Shout out to our old coach.
Yeah, what up, coach? I'm going to Club Thick later.
You dropped a bomb on it. We used to run to that song a lot. But point being, I think golf is extremely complex from a skill standpoint, but it's still, you hit the ball and put it in the hole. And you don't have to rely on anybody else. And if you do rely on your caddy and you fuck up, you can just fire your caddy and then blame it on your caddy or your club, and then throw your club in the water, and then just, it is what it is. But no, so
Wouldn't you think that takes more of a mental capacity, like to be mentally strong if it's a individual sport? I do. I mean, when we think about it, when you're training like when we do ones, back when we were at Joe Ward's camp, like that, you have to think about being tactical. He wanted you to take what we were doing that day and apply it to your game. So I wouldn't you think that being in a team sport is a lot somewhat easier than being in an individual sport? I mean, I would think so.
I think also, I mean, that's a little close to home in a sense, because I've actually had, and maybe this is just me, I've had more difficulty playing sometimes in a team-oriented game because of, you have to rely on others. And it's sort of the Michael Jordan, management conundrum, where when you have to rely on others, they might not have what you have. And like, for example, a former player coaching or owning a team or drafting a team in any sport, you may think that you're drafting a guy who's going to have the same work ethic as you, or who's going to figure it out as quick as you did. And you don't have the same control as you would as a player. Right. And even as a player, you have to rely, like for football, for example, if you're a wide receiver, no matter how good you are, if your quarterback doesn't throw you the ball or can't throw you the ball, or his O-line doesn't block long enough for him to get rid of the ball, or the play calling is bad, it doesn't matter how good a wide receiver you are, you have to rely on others. And so I think from an individual standpoint, like golf or chess or ping pong,
skateboarding,
anything that's individual, I think it's easier in a sense because you don't have to rely on others. I may have gotten off on a little tangent there, if that's kind of what you were.
No, that's fine. But I feel like, isn't that the luxury of a team sport, that you can rely on somebody?
It is okay. It is a bittersweet.
Whether or not you believe in them or not, you still have that luxury of how something can happen from this other person.
It is a double-edged sword.
Individual sport, it's just you or nothing.
Right. No, that's definitely a pro and con there, because when your back is against the wall or you face adversity, you can rely on others to get you out of that jam, or pick you up when you're down or, when you're not succeeding. So yeah, technically it goes both ways on that. But I think football, just from a pure X's and O's scheme standpoint, is the most complex competitive game. And I think that's what kind of sets it apart from every other sport in the world. And you need to agree with that.
No, I guess we have to disagree. Like physically, I could see that. Because you're pushing fucking 300, 400-pound men. Right. So I get physically difficultly, but I'm talking mentally. Like mentally, I feel like golf is just a way more complex sport than football. But that's neither here nor there.
It depends. I mean, but I think, yeah, no, it's fun to talk about other sports, especially in comparison to basketball. It makes you kind of think that like how simple basketball really is at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Pick and roll. Huh?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say pick and roll, 5 out, can't touch anyone on defense. That's basically what this era is.
Well, I always thought basketball was a simple, like that. But that was a nice little rant we just went on.
That was fun.
Let's go ahead and get into the shits though. So our main topic of the day was gonna be, what if we took different players in any era and switched them around? For example, like we were talking about earlier, if we would have put LeBron in like the 40s or 50s. This has always been a big topic with a bunch of people. But and we think that obviously if you put today's LeBron or LeBron of whenever he was drafted into, like whenever he first started his pro career to now, like that, the player he is and stuck him in any era. Yeah, I think obviously he's going to dominate. He'd probably lead the league in scoring and easily, like to a T. I think he'd lead in every statistical category you could think of in the league. Like he'd be number one every year. I think if you put him in somewhere in between the 40s to the 60s, I think, or maybe even 70s, he'd average the most points and he'd probably be the number one leading scorer of all, passing Kareem. But like we've said before, I think in those times, it's just different. I don't think they're letting LeBron of today be LeBron. I think they're going to try to put him in a Bill Russell type of situation where he has to stick to the post and he's not going to have that luxury to bring the ball up the court or be able to dribble or be able to pass. He's not going to be a point guard. They're not going to let him be a point guard in those different eras. I just don't see it. Maybe in the 70s where Magic became a thing, so LeBron could buy, and you could make that argument, but for the sake of this argument, let's just say that doesn't happen. They're going to keep you as a big man. And that's what I truly believe. I mean, I want to say there was only so rare that they will let that happen. Like, especially back then, if you're a point guard, you're a point guard. They're not going to let you just, if you're a point guard at 6'6" and let you bring the ball up the court. No, they're not going to let that happen. They just weren't.
Well, and like Shaq likes to say, if you're bigger than your opponent, you should capitalize on your size and go closer to the basket to finish. I mean, it's just a really simple thing. And LeBron, one thing that, a lot, like you said, a lot of people debate this. If LeBron was in Jordan's era or if he was in Magic's era, you put him in the 40s, he's averaging 400 points a game.
Sure.
But
I'm averaging 400 points a game.
one thing that I think maybe people don't think about as much or they overlook is, are we plucking LeBron at his peak, whether that be Miami or Cleveland or even LeBron right now? Are we taking him right now and putting him in the 50s? Then yeah, with his skill set and ability and size, strength, athleticism, he's going to do whatever he absolutely wants on the court. But if he was to have been born in the 40s and then played in the 60s and 70s, then he would have developed in the style of play that those eras had become. It's sort of like,
for sure.
So I think the parameters of these discussions need to kind of be set where if you're plucking a player from a later generation with just everything that's better from a science standpoint, how they keep their bodies, and then just from a skill development standpoint where I don't think 30, 40 years ago, 7-footers even thought about going to the 3-point line. You know,
For sure.
I went back a while back and I was watching an old Lakers Celtics finals matchups, and Magic came down, dribbled all the way under the 3-point line, and Dennis Johnson was literally guarding him in the paint. Like, so it was just a completely different era.
Oh, for sure. Like,
you know?
Today's, I would say, probably since maybe the mid 2000s, maybe the late 2000s, it became more of a players' league. Back then, granted, we were nowhere near a thought back then, but just from what you see and from what's always being told by players of back then, it was a coaches' league. Like, no, like you're gonna say what your coaches, you're gonna do what your coaches says. Like, you're gonna dribble to the 15-foot line, pass it all. You get, like, because I remember it being a thing for us growing up. We had to make sure we got to the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
Start your offense.
If you,
certain point, like learning the game. So imagine like that. If that was a rule, imagine that being a rule. That was definitely a rule back then in real games.
There was no freelancing like there is today, where you have a player who just razzle dazzles. And that's one of the gripes I have with today's era. You know, you watch LaMelo Ball, and I know he's a huge talking point on a lot of different programs. And he's talented. He's very lucky he grew to be 6'7", 6'8", whatever he was. But you see the style of play that he comes down and has the utmost confidence, which is a huge thing you need to have. And I think that's one of his best traits is his confidence. But he comes down and he's doing all this razzle dazzle, and they create great highlights. You can put up big numbers in certain circumstances, but not everybody, and especially in this era, but let alone ever, has had the freedom to come down and just put as much pepper in your pan as you possibly want. And
I mean, you mean in this era? Or
I'm saying, like, in general, not everybody gets to do that. Just come down and do whatever you want. And
no, for sure, yeah.
And so especially back then, you ran a set, you ran a specific design play by your coach to maximize your team.
Threes were thought to be a shitty fucking play. Like, people didn't want you shooting threes. Like, at a point, like when the 3-point line came a thing, they didn't want you. Coaches didn't want you doing that. They thought that was a bad shot. And look at today, we're okay with letting people shoot at the fucking hash or at the fucking logo. Like, they're okay with that. They're not gonna just let anybody do it, but they'll let at least one starting 5 get away with that. Maybe even the 6th or 7th man, but you're not. But like, that's an okay shot today. Back then, just a regular 3 was like, that was considered a bad shot unless you're wide open. Like, I can remember not really, like, none of us were really taught, I want to say, to like create your own shot from the 3-point line. As far as like, you're gonna do some shake and bake and pull for a 3. Like, I think that just gradually became a thing. Certain players could do that, but that wasn't necessarily a thing to be taught. So today, I think that you're right. There's more freelance today than there was back then, where like whatever your height was, you're definitely going to be in the post. You're not going to bring the ball up, and whatever Magic Johnson's coach in high school saw in him, just they let that run. They saw greatness somewhere right there. But if Magic would have played in the 50s, like as far as like his like coming up as a kid or something like that, I mean, he'd have to be born in the 50s, but like if he was a teen within that time, they were sticking him in the post. They weren't letting him bring the ball up. I really doubt that that's going to happen, just because he was 6'9" and he was tall and he was big. They're not letting him just be a point guard.
Well, and I think that goes to show there are some good hidden gem coaches out there who do see that kind of potential in players. And
right.
LeBron was given that kind of same treatment. He had a really tough upbringing. But at the same time, from a basketball standpoint, his time at St. Vincent St. Mary's all the way till now, he's had the keys in every offense, every game he's ever played. And if you were born, for example, we're from Arizona, and I'm 6'5", played point guard my whole life until I grew in high school. And then, you get a coach who says, to me, I can't shoot threes and I'm going to be our 5-man because our team is really small. Well, now you're taking away my playmaking ability, my point guard ability, my whole career, my 3-point shooting, and you're sticking me on the block because Arizona is naturally a smaller player state. Whereas, if you play like dudes from California think Arizona are punks. Dudes from Texas think California are punks. People from the East Coast thinks Texas is punks. And so a 6'7" dude from New York is not coming down here and just getting on the block and doing drop steps and playing in the middle of a 2-3 zone, and that's all he's doing. A 6'7" dude from New York is going to completely just take over the game out here in Arizona. And so it goes back to coaching, and it goes back to style, and it goes back to era. But if Magic, let's say, would have been in a different situation where he has a coach that's adamant, he's stubborn, he says, "No, you're too big to just be handling the pill. We got another point guard who's sufficient in that area. We want you to be the Chris Webber of the 70s." I think it's more about situation, and I'm glad he had a coach or he had a system in place to be able to maximize his potential. But with basketball, and we talk about this all the time, situation is almost everything, and how political it is. Yeah. You could be super uber talented, but situation and sometimes injury history is just, it's everything. And when you're headbutting with a coach who's stubborn and wants to run a specific style, or doesn't think that you can do ABC, and he wants you to do XYZ, it's really tough. And now you got a bunch of kids just trying to transfer, and that's another topic. Like, do you stick it out? Because a lot of the blue collar old heads say you need to just be you just need to work harder and this and that. But sometimes it's like college football. You got to transfer to a better situation because you're not in a position that you can succeed in. And what's worse, is there anything worse than having to compete within your own team to try to get to the next level when you should be competing with your team to beat your opponent? That makes things really difficult for people to continue to try to get to the next level. And that's
and I get it though, and I get that aspect. I mean, as a competitor, you want to compete, and I totally understand that. As far like what opposite of what you're saying, like, yeah, you said why should you have to compete within your team? But I get it, because it is always situational. Like, to get to the next level, they want what they want, and if they see that in that player, they're going to get that in that player. So I kind of disagree with you on that. Like, there always needs to be a competitive aspect, I think, even within the team, because you want the best people on the court at the time. So I right at that point. But
when I was more so talking about like your certain teammates are trying to steal the shine of the other one because they're trying to get looked at.
And I mean, that just comes with, I think, the game, especially like the later time frame, as far as like when we were coming up. I think that became more of a thing because of like the recruiting, like the Ball is Life and hoop mixtapes. I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone wanted that kind of fame, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it helps, but I think that's also situational too. It's all about who you know, and it goes back, I think, to coaching, where you said that Magic had the coach in high school that just let him be Magic. Mm-hmm. If he went somewhere else, who knows what would have happened? Like, he'd probably just be stuck in the post. Like, I think I got the perfect example of me growing up. I was probably, what you could recall, I was one of the tallest kids at 11. I was probably the only 6'2" person, like, kid. And that was my growth spurt. That shit stopped right at 11, and I never got any taller. And most of y'all that know me could attest to that. So I was a post player growing up. But shout out to Art Dye, taught me and yourself how to like really shoot. So I hold him to high praise, and he's one of the main people that helped me become a great shooter. But to go back to that, I had to be a post because I was tall. I didn't learn to be a guard until I was probably like really 13, not 13, like maybe 14, 15, like going into high school. I had to learn a lot of that stuff. I had to learn to be comfortable with the ball. If I didn't, who knows? Like, luckily I was able to get to college, and you know what I'm saying? But if that didn't happen, if I didn't put in that work, who knows what would have happened? Like, I wasn't just given a point guard like to just go run the point or stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily, and I was just put in the post. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It wasn't necessarily my decision. I was just tall, and I just feel I was able to run up and down the court faster than most kids at that age. And obviously, as I got older, my athleticism got any better, so I had to become way more skilled than anything. But yeah, so I see that like that plays a role being in situations where they're gonna let you be you in a sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's just to a T. Going to a team where a coach trusts your skill set and puts you in a position to succeed could be more beneficial than you being just straight up more talented than someone else. You see that a lot.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know tons of people that are talented.
Yeah.
It's all situational. It's all about, and it does. And I'm gonna just let everyone out there know it doesn't matter how hard you work. That matters somewhat, but it never really does. It matters about who you know at the time, because you can have there's tons of people that never even played in college that are talented, or never even played in high school that were talented. It's all about who you know sometimes. So, because I worked my ass off as a kid, waking up at 3 a.m. I'd go to the gym. Most of y'all that know Garcia, I was there anytime I can be, working out, trying to just work on my game. And that sometimes it just doesn't matter how hard you work. It matters about who you know and who's going to help you get in these kind of positions to go on and better your career. But yeah, that's a tangent, but
no, and you're not saying you shouldn't work hard. You still need
you
to work
should
hard.
definitely work hard, but sometimes it's all about situation too. And but to go back on topic, I want to talk about Isaiah Thomas, not the Isaiah Thomas that everyone knows today. The 80s Isaiah Thomas, Pitbull, leader of the Bad Boys, Isaiah Thomas. The reason I want to bring him up because I think he'd be this people won't kill me for this. I think he'd be better than Steph Curry today.
That's hot. That's a hot take.
No, and the reason I think he will is because he was definitely he was better than Steph Curry. The only reason we give Steph Curry this 3-point shooting thing is because the greatest shooter of all time. And like this goes back to situation. And he is an NBA kid. He was around the NBA since birth. His dad was a great shooter within the league. It's just an NBA family. But Isaiah Thomas, man, like the things he was able to do in the 80s and to have that, and he's from Chicago. What he did, he won he's a national championship, first of all, from Indiana University, playing with Bobby Knight, and then going on to the Detroit Pistons and winning 2 titles. If he never tore his Achilles, imagine where he would have been.
Man,
I think, and he was a great shooter, and he was getting in there with the bigs. He was banging. He was taking some hits. And if we want to talk about situation, how he would have adapted in today's, he would have definitely been a way better 3-point shooter, and he could shoot people. So I do believe that he would have definitely been better than Steph Curry. And Steph Curry is great. Don't get me wrong. I do believe as of now, he is considered the greatest shooter.
I strongly disagree with him being the best shooter of all time. I think that's Ray Allen, and you can kill me for that.
No. I think we've said that. I'm just saying what the stigma is.
Oh yeah.
That he's the greatest shooter. I mean, we've talked about that. But no, I mean, how do you feel about Isaiah Thomas being better than Steph Curry?
I think pound for pound, what Zeke did in the era that he played in, the Bad Boys Pistons team had to kind of wait their turn, going through Boston all those years, and then getting over the hump twice. I think a lot of people nowadays think of him as, him and Michael Jordan kind of button heads, and they have a sour taste in their mouth because of what went on with the Dream Team and how he kind of was shunned by Michael Jordan. But pound for pound, I think he go ahead.
Magic's even said he's the reason why that didn't happen.
Oh, Magic's the reason?
Well, that's what Magic said himself, and John Sally himself said that Magic said that he was a reason that Isaiah Thomas didn't play on the Dream Team. Now, can that just be all for show? And maybe because they didn't want Michael to take the hit? Could be. We don't know. That we'll probably never know until Jordan maybe passes, then he writes it somewhere in some memoir. But as of now, I mean, it's been stated that Magic Johnson was the reason that happened. But people still do blame Jordan.
Okay, yeah. Well, and either whether it was Jordan or Magic, like, you know, him being left off the dream team and then.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. I think he should have been.
Like, so I think, you know, he definitely was Allen Iverson before Allen Iverson, first and foremost.
Oh no. I mean, but see, this is, I think that's where this kind of like goes. People could put it, whoever. Yeah, I think people hold Allen to high regard. They say he's probably the best 6 foot player to ever play. I don't. I do hold Allen to high regards, but I also think he's a 2 guard. I don't think he's a 1.
Right.
A pure 1. And I think that's just where I stand with that. I think he was a pure 1. So I think he's better than Allen. I just think Allen had more of an impact on culture too. But
and I think that alone goes a long way with the legacy of somebody, more than the actual on the court, what they could do.
For sure.
He had white kids braiding up their hair, you know, with band-aids and whatnot and finger sleeves. Like, no one else had kids doing that. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, Allen Iverson had that legacy. But no, Isaiah Thomas from a pound for pound. I think one thing about Steph, and I know he's a lot of people's favorite player, but I don't know if a lot of people truly understand how privileged the son of a NBA player really is, let alone a good NBA player. You have access to a gym your entire life, like a good gym that you can go and shoot. There's no excuse if your dad was in the NBA and still has ties to the NBA and is good, and you know you have all that money. And not saying you can't work hard, and obviously Steph's an incredible talent, but the fact that, you know, the players who come from nothing and come from the mud, it's more special to me because, you know, sometimes you don't have a gym. You got to go shoot on double rims outside.
And like, I think I finally understand why there's double rims outside. This is a little tangent. Because of the wind. Like, that fucking rim is gonna shake if it's a thin rim. Like that. Yeah. Even with double rim, it still might shake. But a thin rim, that shit's just all over the place.
And I mean, and also too, they probably don't want them to break, and so they make them as, you know, hard and
no, for sure, yeah,
you know, heavy as they possibly can. And so if you don't have brand new sneakers, an air conditioned gym, a good basketball, sometimes an empty gym to go get shots up, a shooting machine, you know, always having a ride here and there. You don't have to shoot in inclement weather and work on your handles and rain and stuff like that. Like, and every kid basically who's made it, I'm not saying like Steph's never like done all that either, but when your dad's Del Curry and you have a brother and you've been able to, like, I mean, Steph Curry, I know that a lot of people know I have a gripe with Steph Curry, and it's not with him as the person. He's probably a really nice guy. I'll watch his mini golf show, whatever. But
that's what you like about him.
Yeah. Him as a basketball player though, absolutely irks me. And I think being in the system that he's in, with the freedom that he's had, with the privileged life growing up, and I'm sure he's gone through a lot of adversity just like every other human has. But from a basketball standpoint, if you watch him at Davidson, he gives the ball up and then the player gives it right back to him when he gets open. Like, their entire offense was predicated around Steph Curry.
Right.
And so, you know, similar to other players, like Jimmer Fredette was the same way at BYU. He would just give the ball up and then, you know, relocate for a three. And they're incredible.
Sure, yeah.
They're incredible shooters, but there's more to the game than just being hand fed the ball in a perfect position for your skill set. And I think Mark Jackson gets the short end of the stick in Golden State because Steve Kerr came in with a preloaded team and just kind of, you know, let them loose what Mark Jackson built. And I think you put Steph on a different team, And I know we were talking Isaiah Thomas to Steph, but I think there's a level of situation that goes in to how good someone may or may not be. And, Isaiah Thomas was in a good position too on the Pistons, with the bad boys surrounded by defenders. But they had juggernauts to go through as well in Boston,
sure.
New York, Chicago. It wasn't like they were playing slouches, but I think Isaiah Thomas could do everything and was more of a pure point guard than I think Steph is, to me, even more. He's a 2 guard as well, but they're just in a point guard frame, a little, a peanut body.
No, for sure. Another player I like to bring up, and I think this might cause a little stir for you.
For me?
Dennis Rodman. I think because we only know of him as being the defensive juggernaut that he was with the Pistons and the Bulls, but people forget that he was a tough scorer in college. Like, granted, he went to NAI school, but NAIs are not considered, or were not back then considered what they are today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, back then, you could get drafted playing at an NAI school. Today, it's not even a thing. Like, you know how good you probably have to be. You probably have to. This is probably like the highest regards that what would happen if you went to NAI school. You'd have to be an All-American, like McDonald's All-American. If something happened within the college that you went to, and then you go to NAI school, and then they somehow pick you up because they just kind of still believe in you. That's what would happen for you to get drafted to be from NAI to the league. Back then, off the top of my head right now, 2 Hall of Famers come to mind. It's Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen. They both went to NAI schools in college and were drafted. So my point bringing that up is that Dennis Rodman averaged 17 and 13 his first year as a freshman, and then went on to average 25 and 15. So he could score. Granted, it's an NAI school, but NAI schools are way different back then. They just were. Like, they were, I think, probably in NAI, nothing to knock on NAI because I went to one too. Like, it's still good competition. Today it's not the same competition as it is playing Division I school. Mm-hmm. But back then, I think they played a lot more Division I schools. So Dennis Rodman was getting buckets. And I think in today's game, with the player he was as far as energetic, going up and down the court, I think he'd average points today. And I think he'd average a ton of points in the early years. That 80s, 90s, they were, like how we said, they're punching people. You're able to fucking hand check people. You're able to punch people in the mouth and still keep going. And on those Pistons teams, they didn't need him to score. On the Bulls teams, they didn't need him to score. And he did play with other teams, but they were for short stints. So who knows? Maybe if he was put in a situation where someone needed him to score, I think he could probably do it. So I think in any era besides the era he played with, and as stupid as that take sounds, you think that he'd be a lot more dominant on the offensive end playing in any different era.
No, I think what you bring up is a good point. I think he could score in this era. It's not that hard to score 10 to 20, given the amount of opportunity and the up and down nature of the game. And I think it's funny you bring up Dennis Rodman as like the example for this, but I think a lot of players in the NBA, excuse me, if they were given bigger roles or in a different situation, even just in like today's era or, 10 years ago, if a player switches from here to there, because a lot of players are buried behind depth or for whatever reason, they weren't a high draft pick or they're not owed a lot of money. And I think you could see a lot more guys scoring points in other situations or eras, and they're just, for whatever reason, not in a situation to do so. And so you have a guy like Dennis Rodman who wasn't called upon, like you said, to score points, and he did play defense so amazingly, and then rebounded out of his mind. And so he just completely embraced his role, and teams brought him in and let him go to strip clubs and do whatever he wanted to do, as long as you want to do what you need to do for
sure.
us.
Like they let him wild out, take Vegas trips during the season.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you just bring the energy, at least for him, And he really was just an energy guy. Like, get your boards, play some D, and that's really all we need you for. Like, we got the greatest player of all time, to me anyways, to score the ball, and he's going to get us what we need. And then you got the greatest sidekick of all time, Scottie Pippen, who's going to, do the extra little things, and all we need you to do is just bring the energy and bring the intensity.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of guys that are like Ronnie Turioff, for example, or DeJuan Blair, or I mean, you could go like a Kenneth Faried, those dudes who aren't necessarily the guy in the offense. Ben Wallace, for example, the guys who aren't asked to go get you 15 to 20 plus a game. I feel like a lot of them could get you 15 to 20. If that was kind of what the team needed, and they blossomed into that role. But it's funny too. A lot of people might think so-and-so, and we joke like, oh, KG played with a bunch of bums. No, Troy Hudson would come down to your local LA Fitness and cook anybody at a local LA Fitness or a park.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like, but they're not these, like, so just to make it clear, like, for people, like, we call these people bums, but we know that it takes a lot. Like, you have to be good to be in the NBA. Like, you have to. Like, this is the greatest basketball league that there is. So, like, you have to be good to be in the NBA. But what we see their production be is just not what is being held.
Yeah, comparatively. Comparatively to the rest of the league or the rest of the history of basketball, Troy Hudson would be considered a bum compared to everyone else. Compared to Joe Schmo, I don't want to name any names, but down at your local rec center, he's absolutely torching anybody.
For sure.
Like Brian Scalabrine would destroy any casual basketball player out there. And so,
for sure, yeah.
But at the same time, like, so those guys, say, okay, I get it. I'm not as good as the best players in the league. So I'm going to conform to my role, whatever this team needs. Jared Dudley has made, crafted a really extended long career by basically just being, a 3-point shooter and a glue guy in the locker room and, a good teammate with a lot of experience. And people forget his Boston College days. Jared Dudley used to cook dudes.
Like, he was nice at Boston College. I mean, like I said, he's in the league for a reason. So
right, and a lot of people have that recency bias of like,
why is he in the league and all this and that? No, I get it. Yeah.
But and it was like he put on that tape. Like, see, and that's the thing. Like, again, I was born in 1991. I didn't get to see the peak of the 80s and 70s, and so full disclosure, I didn't watch Wilt Chamberlain play live, like, heaven forbid, but you can go back and watch ESPN classics or on YouTube. There's tons of just games. So if you need to be a student of the game, and that's what we went back and watched a lot of those actual games. And we grew up in an era right before like Ball is Life and Hoop Mixtape and all that really took off, to where, it wasn't about just cooking highlights and it didn't, and trying to gun for the box score. It was about actually playing defense, and you had to have actually your whole game together, and you had to show off that game in front of the right people, be in the right situation. Hopefully you don't get hurt. But I watched a Ball's Life one time. Some dude hits someone with an in and out behind the back. Dude falls. Crowd goes bananas. And then I watched an unedited clip of that. Dude goes in and out behind the back. Dude falls. Crowd goes bananas. Turnover. Dude yams on him. But on his Hoop Mixtape, he's showing just the crossover. And so to me, that this era has become so highlight heavy. And again, LaMelo Ball, he has some crazy flashy behind the back pass, but we're not talking about his 4 for 19 shooting, that kind of stuff. Right. And I don't have any specific examples off the top of my head, but so I don't even know where I was going with that. But at the same time,
no, I was like, I'm just gonna let you go. Sound like a nice little rant, but yeah.
But point being, so those bums that we talk about, they're not real bums. They. Like Jared Dudley, the situation he was in got him. He's not a bum. And so
I'll put it this way. Speaking of Jared Dudley, I think he could play in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Like I think a lot of players today could probably play that. But I'm talking about if we were to take Jared Dudley today, stick him in there. I think he's a 20-point a game player.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because like again, like what we were saying off air, that they were just a bunch of what would you say garbage men and what mailmen?
Milkman and paper boys. Reading it, I don't even know what I was saying.
But last player I would like to discuss, and again, I think I'm gonna get some slack for this. Kareem. I don't think he'd fare well in today's NBA.
That is a hot take. Sam DePriest, I know, is listening. And he's a diehard Lake fan. Kareem is his favorite player.
Oh, and my point being, and let me tell you this, I hold Kareem to the highest regard. I think he's the second best player of all time, right behind Jordan. The greatest scorer that we've seen as of right now. Who knows if that'll ever be broken. But in the most unstoppable shot of its time. And this brings me to my point. I don't think he'd get away with the skyhook today as he would have back then. The reason being, if Giannis is on him, Giannis is just as tall as Kareem and just as lanky. And granted, Giannis may be a little out of control, but I think Giannis is getting to that. I think he's stopping a lot of that.
And so you're saying Kareem in this era, does that also include the officiating of this era?
Yeah, but I think if Kareem is Kareem, if we're taking, and I'm taking that Kareem of his prime and putting him here. And granted, I just seen tapes. And from what I heard, he was a martial artist not because of Enter the Dragon either. I mean, he actually practiced. So I don't think he would do that just to do it and not be skilled in it. Mm-hmm. And we know he was probably one of the first people to really take care of his body back then. Because I think he was a vegan early, so he took care of his body really well. But I think if we put him in today, I think he'd still be efficient. I still think he'd be one of the top, I don't know about top scorers, because he'd have to stick in the post. I don't think for him he would adapt to shooting threes. I don't even think he really had that well of a mid-range, from what I could recall. I mean, maybe he took a few 15-footers here and there, but it wasn't like he was just taking them consistently. Yeah, they might have trained him to be, but no, his bread and butter was in the post. He's getting that skyhook off. And I think even though today there's not as much defense played as we just admitted to, I do think it'd still be tough for him to score that many points.
I think, and see, that's where I'm going to disagree. Because I think this era is the easiest era to score points. And recently I was watching a Mavericks game, and Porzingis was the game where Charles Barkley said, "This is stupid ass basketball because you got all these motherfuckers shooting threes." And it was the Warriors game when no one was over 6'7". So Porzingis, get your ass on the block and, use your height to your advantage. So Porzingis got the ball on the block. He takes one power dribble, drop steps, gets the ball smacked out of his hand. It was actually a clean swipe, automatic foul. And so for me, I do think Kareem would be able to score in this era because of the officiating is so soft now. You blow on somebody, it's a foul. All the superstars in the league are getting phantom calls. Offense can initiate so much contact, and the defense has just nothing. They can't do anything. You can't even stop someone going to the basket.
But you got to remember, today's a point guard league. It's not a post player. It's not a big man's league. They're not going to just sit there and feed the ball to Kareem. They're not. Maybe one point guard, and that's maybe Chris Paul. But then again, Chris Paul, great point guard, he still cares about his assists. He doesn't care really who is two. You got to make it. Like he's one of those players like, I'm passing it to you, you better make the shot. And they're not, I don't think no one's willingly going to give the ball. And I think that's why a lot of these centers had to move to be wings. Perfect example, Robin Lopez. He was strictly a post player. Yeah, he could jump and shoot the little mid range and then shoot the three, but now he had to adapt his whole game to being able to shoot threes.
Are you
I don't
talking?
think Kareem could have done that. Just for the simple fact that he did have such a, like an unstoppable shot. The hooks, the sky hook. I just don't see no one willing to just be like, okay, we're dumping it into the post. I just don't see that in today's game. Like, look at James Harden. If James Harden were to play with Kareem, he's not dumping it to him every play. Like James Harden's going for his.
No, and I agree with that. And I feel like that's a different argument as to why he wouldn't be able to, put up the points and have the legacy in today's era, because it wouldn't be for lack of ability. I think that would be more of a lack of situation and the lack of era, prioritizing the big man who can score on the block.
But you can't pass the ball to yourself. Someone
right.
has,
But so I think, I still think he would be able to score in this era when he did get it. I think a better comparison might be DeAndre Ayton. You see like, Ayton, if he was in, 10 years ago, maybe he's putting up 29 and, in 14 a game because he's going to be the centerpiece of an offense in like the 2000s, early 2010s. But in this era, it's like you said, guard oriented, ball dominating, 5-out basketball. And you have to have a jumper as a big man to, to even be on the court, to be a threat. So they can't just, help out. And it's basically 5-on-4. But so I see your point. And I don't know if there's a team that would run their offense exclusively through him like he got his whole career. And I agree with that. But I do think this era, when given the opportunity, which is why I think Shaq would also absolutely dominate in this era, is because I don't think anyone could stop him with his skyhook with today's soft ass officiating. And he did it against Wilt Chamberlain and the other bigs of that era. I think he could do it against the bigs without being able to really foul and push in this era even more so. But you do have a really good point. No one's going to give him the rock in 20 shots a game doing skyhooks. So,
but also too, like I just don't see it though, because like these bigs today aren't real bigs. Like they're like, I think he'd have a tough time with the Joker.
Oh, certainly.
Like he's gonna have a tough time on the defensive end too, because Joker's big. I'm not saying Kareem wasn't strong, but I think today, a lot of the kids today, yeah, they're kind of slender, but they're just like the weight room is a thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Today, I want to say that really became a more influential thing when we were growing up, as far as I can remember. And like, yeah, maybe in the 90s too, but more of like when I remember us, like we were in the weight room at a young age. Like Joe Ward had us in the weight room lifting weights. Granted, it wasn't fucking super heavy ass weights, 2-3 plates kind of stuff, but it was weights that we were lifting to get our body used to how it was going to be. And I just don't think that I think that with the stuff we know today and the players that they have today within the weight room and like training their bodies right, I think Kareem's gonna have a tough time. Let's throw the point guard stuff out and they do give him the ball. I think he's having a tough time trying to score on a lot of these people. And granted, don't get me wrong, the 80s and 70s, they were tough, but that was more of like bully ball. We're gonna hit you and do all this and that. Here, I think if we do, let's say the ticky-tack stuff, we kind of like they're gonna call that, but say they let him play. I think he's still having a tough time. Some of these players are like Giannis. I keep going back to Giannis. I think Giannis is just, excuse me, just strong and his brute strength is gonna really stop that. And the reason we bring up Shaq, I think Shaq would dominate any era because we already seen him bring the ball up the court. Like he has that kind of ability. Mm-hmm. Like in his beginning of his career where he looked like a fucking elk. Like he was just smooth coming up and down. Later, I mean, obviously we saw him become more obviously bigger and whatnot. So he wasn't that same Orlando Shaq, but he was, dominant in the post. So I think Shaq would adapt to this era easily. And I think he'd be better than Giannis. But
I do too.
But back to the Kareem, I just think it'd be harder for players because I think he'd have a tough time with Shaq.
Right. And that's a lot of people who want to debate the best centers, which is why I personally put Shaq over Kareem, because I don't think anyone could guard Shaq. I know like Ben Wallace and Rodman had certain stints where they did pretty good against him because they had a low center of gravity and they could really just muscle and rough him up as much as possible. But I think anyone who's not extremely gifted defensively and strong and quick and has that ability, like there's two dudes, like I said, Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman, who could potentially, frustrate him in a 7-game series because it was so unorthodox and they could put all their weight on him. But anyone else who doesn't have remotely that same strength or quickness, because Shaq was extremely quick for how big he was. I don't think any true center could really guard him. But with Kareem, I do think his shot, the skyhook, it would translate to any era, and I think he would be able to score on Shaq as well. And I do your comparison with Giannis, and as much as I think like the big men of today and the athletic ability and everything would translate to better defense, the officiating really bothers me when it comes to the ticky-tack fouls. And because I'm seeing, when you watch a game, like Porzingis is a twig as well. Right. And so when he has someone who's 6'7", who's in good shape on him, if he can get low enough, and you can't bang like you want to, then it is barbecue chicken when he gets the ball down there. But so I think Kareem, he was also extremely smart and gifted mentally at the game of basketball.
Oh, no, for sure. Like I said, I hold him to high regard.
Yeah, but so I do think it would translate to any area for him. But at the same time, like Shaq, Vlade Divac scored on Shaq. It's not like, he could just shut down everyone either.
I'm not saying Kareem's not scoring. I'm just saying I don't think he's as dominant as he was. I just
right. But
the thing with Shaq, I see Shaq being dominant as he was any era.
Right.
That for Kareem in this age, like I said, and I'm not even putting 3-point shooting in it because I don't think Shaq's shooting threes. I just see Shaq being still as dominant as he was when he was. Kareem, I just don't see it because, first of all, we never once seen Kareem bring the ball up the court, and that matters in today's game. Like today, you have to be able to do that. If you can't, there's really no use for you to being out there. Like we see that. Either you got to shoot or you have to at least be able to bring the ball up the court, even as a big man. That's why they trust the Joker bringing up the ball sometimes.
Right.
Kareem couldn't do it, but if you look at his game and like how he like his coordination and stuff like that, it doesn't look like Kareem's going to be able to do that kind of stuff.
So you think he ends up being more of the caliber of player as like a Boban or a Hassan Whiteside, where they can't be a full-time.
Oh, no, I don't think that at all.
Well, I'm saying because those guys don't have jumpers and
they don't make an impact only but defensively.
Well, but
making an impact still on offense. I just don't think he's making as big of an impact, or he's not being the all-time leading scorer in today's game.
Right. So it's like a happy medium between being what he was and not quite them. And like I
said, he's not adapting to the. I just don't think he's that. I just don't think he's I think he's maybe 15, 16 points a game. Like they're not even reaching that. They're getting like 10, 8, 9, right. Stuff like that.
Well,
I think Kareem's that. I think he's 10 points off than what his career was.
Like you said, he's not going to bring the ball up. He doesn't have ball handling ability. He would struggle potentially to guard bigs who can shoot of this athleticism and everything.
For sure.
So that's where I was kind of going more so with, is he a full-time, is he like the main focal point, like as the center for a team, or is he more of, because like what you're saying basically is he's a liability in certain areas. And so he's not Jokic or Anthony Davis or DeAndre Ayton or someone like that. So we don't think he's going to be a bad player, but I think the argument against him more is the style of play and the situation he would go to. But I do think if a team said we're going to play through the big man who can score on the block like a Kareem or a Shaq, I do think Kareem would still be able to put up the numbers he did back then here, if not more so because of the officiating, but ultimately I don't think he would, because no one would play that style of basketball. So I think we're kind of saying similar things.
No, yeah, because like I'm saying, like that's a big what if. Like in today's game, no one's running through the post. Like no one. I don't even know of a team that's even considered it. Like they may throw LeBron there, but he's not. They're not running their entire offense. Like they have Anthony Davis. They're not even running him through the post. Like they'll set him up.
Right.
Isn't ran through the post. Like he's sometimes chilling on the wing. You're not going to see Kareem chilling on the wing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's like Joel Embiid would probably be the one guy that the teams dump it down to him. But even then, he takes way too many threes for everybody's liking, and he's not down there enough.
Like you would look at Kareem, like if he had to sit on the wing, like why is he even out there? Like in all honesty, you'd look at that and be like, why is he out on the court? He does like, yeah, he could score in the post, but we're not trying to do that. Like we're trying to get these threes, we're trying to get the cutters and stuff like that. There's no reason to. And in today's game, that's technically clogging up the lane. If you think about it, to have someone in the post and try to run off. Because like before, you could have someone in the post and just one person, you're not clogging up the lane. Today, that'd be clogging up the lane in a sense where it's stopping the cutters from coming, it's stopping people from getting through screens to go to the 3-point line. Like that's just kind of what it is. And I just don't see them being like, okay, well, if he can't shoot threes, there's really no reason to have him out there.
Right. And I would say one more thing on the officiating as well. I think the three
you're gonna beat this down.
Well, for me, I think this era is so, full disclosure, I kind of stopped watching this era the last few years. Just as a fan, because it's so hard for me to watch as a basketball old head. You blow on a guy and it's a foul. You can't hand check. You can't play perimeter defense in a perimeter offensive oriented game. And the refs just make it impossible to play defense. And then AAU ball and how kids are brought up these days, they don't even need to play defense. It's all offensive oriented. And then the defensive 3 seconds in the lane having a defensive 3 seconds in the lane makes it more wide open because you can't camp down there. And so it actually ends up going the other way, where if you have a big who can shoot, then you have to guard them. But if you don't have a big who can shoot, they can't be in the lane anyway to help, which makes the offensive game is naturally going to be more wide open in this era. And so, and also to add to the officiating, the James Harden step back is one of the most atrocious things I've ever fucking seen. And it makes me sick watching. There's a reason why Dirk's fade is a fadeaway. It's because you lean off of your right foot and then come off of your left, and you can't put your right foot back down to balance, or that's a travel. That's 3 steps. So he had to make a really difficult shot.
He's even been shown to take 4 or 5. So, I mean, they're just letting him do whatever he wants.
You're talking James Harden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the Dirk fade, why it's so impressive is because it's such a complicated shot. You're contorting your body, away from the defender and not being able to balance. And so, but with the James Harden step back, you literally get to dribble in, and then hezzy back, and then take a step, right foot, take this left foot, put the right foot back down to balance, sometimes do it again, and then shoot, and then the defense can't guard you. They can't get up in your face. They can't put a hand on you. It is so ridiculous how we can allow players to get that balance step to shoot on balance when it's literally a travel. And whether they like the officiating let this translate to this era. And imagine if players one more thought is, you kind of can't get mad at the players for taking advantage if they're not going to call that shit. Take advantage. But James Harden full on grabs dudes and then wraps them up. So I think the officiating needs to go back to letting them play more and stop with all the damn ticky-tack fouls and let them play like men. Fuck.
No, for sure. But to go add on to your point, trainers are also teaching kids those same things. Like they're teaching the kids at a young age that that's a move to make. And I guess like how you said, like if they're gonna let that happen, the refs anyways, and I see it why, but I that's just bad training in my opinion. I don't think you should teach kids that. I always thought you should teach the fundamentals and like let that gradually lead on to you being creative with your handle and it going from there. But that's just my opinion.
And that's another topic for another pod for sure, because of what these trainers and people are doing is, where the game's going. I mean, I get it. It's a shooting league and everything. And it's all about razzle dazzle handles. You don't need, 10 crossovers and, try to make someone have the ball on the string. It's 1-2, go make, get your guy leaning and then attack his front foot. That's really all you need. But,
for sure.
People want those highlights and they want those crazy, freestyle handles and whatnot. And I've seen kids come into the gym 7, 8, 9 years old. The first shot they take is an NBA range 3. And it's like, I don't know who's teaching them. If you don't know any better, you don't know any better. But at the same time,
Right, no,
you're watching all
sure.
these players do all these crazy complex moves. And you need to have the fundamentals down first, which is why I think Kareem would be able to play in this era.
I got a funny little story to tell. During this whole quarantine, we know that the gyms have been closed. So I found a park that actually had the rims open. So I went over there, work out, get some shots up and whatnot. I saw this dude training this kid. And I don't know what this guy thought. I don't even know. He had like his thing, like what he does, like his promotion for what he does. I thought this was the oddest shit to teach a kid. He laid him on the ground, and he had him have the ball and do this, like focus his form just lay on the ground and do that. And he told him, if it doesn't come back to your face, you're not doing it right. And I'm like, huh?
Oh gosh.
I just don't get certain people's coaching style. Like we said, this is a whole different topic for next time. But that right there just irked me. Like, please, for anyone like that does want your kid to be involved in basketball or anything like that, please make sure you have great trainers around and people that actually played in college or something that know what they're doing. Because you don't want your kid to be around some kook that thinks that's a perfect way to do things. That's definitely not. And then he had this kid, like there's a light, right? The outside lighting, they had like the cylinder around it, and it's just on. That's how he did. He had this kid do like, it wasn't box jumps, it was a fucking cylinder jump on a thing. Dude, box jumps on it. The kid almost, literally when he almost hurt his ankle, so he stopped him. But like that's just bad coaching and training. So just out there, people please make sure that whoever you have your kids trained to, that they had been to college and they know what it takes. They're just not some random dude that plays at the park or plays at some pickup at LA Fitness and slaps a logo on himself and says he's a trainer. Don't make sure you vent people.
Yeah, I don't want to knock someone's hustle, how they make bread and put food on the table for their family.
That's bad. That's really bad. That's horrible. That's bad to the game of basketball. So like people, please make sure whoever you send your kid to that they have some experience in basketball as far as the collegiate level, because they could teach your kid how to get there.
Yeah, that sounds fraudulent. That's what that is.
Wait, what? The guy?
The guy, yeah.
Like I said, and maybe he played at fucking somewhere, but that looked like he never played before.
Right.
So give him that. Like that was just horrible. I wanted to go over there so bad and be like, I want to tell his dad. And his dad looked at him like he was the guy was crazy, but he let him go to him. I wanted to tell the guy, take your son away from this guy. He's not helping your kid in any way, shape, or form. That looks like it's just crazy. But
yeah, you need to find an art guy. That's the best coach I've ever had. I think we can agree.
And to build on that, the kid had some talent. Like the kid he had a nice, but he wasn't in high school yet. He definitely was like in middle school. The kid was like maybe 6'4", 6'5", some athleticism to him. So I think if that guy, his father would definitely put him in with someone who knows what he's doing. I don't know any of the kid's name. I don't know the dad's name or none of that. Just seeing that really put in perspective to me that you can't just have anyone teach your kid anything. Like no matter what they say to you, you got to really vent these people.
Right. No, and that definitely is going to be another podcast topic for sure. Like what kids are doing these days and where the game's going in that regard. we've all had those instances where you see someone who's trying to teach someone something that they have no business teaching them. So if you see that kid again at the park, tell him to tune into the Test Run podcast to get some good information on homegrown basketball.
Sure.
And maybe he'll learn more on this podcast than he would with Franklin, the bum. Whoever that was.
Yeah. That was just horrible. And I hate to see when kids are and like I've trained a few kids, but like I couldn't do it anymore just because nothing with kids or anything like that. Just I had to go on, finish certain things in my life up. Go on and there's other things for me. But yeah, like make sure you vet these fucking trainers because some of them are just horrible. They don't deserve to be anywhere near your kid as far as like teaching them a specific sport. But yeah.
Shit, yeah. No, we've
definitely like me teaching that kid how to fucking hit somebody like in football.
Right, which you know nothing about football.
I know shit. I don't know how to train for football. I know how to train for basketball, and I knew that wasn't it. But then again, I thought that's none of my business. I don't know if he's paying that guy, but if he was, he deserved his fucking money back. I hope he's not going to that guy anymore after what he saw, because that shit was horrible. It's never been a drill. I've seen someone lay kids on the fucking floor and form shoot with the basketball. I've never seen that. You
should go back to that park and like try to see if they're still grinding. And you should go steal that client because he's just gonna end up getting hurt. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, he almost did. Like I said, like he had him jumping on a fucking light post to do box jumps, and I was like,
crazy.
That's bad. That's just horrible tactics to get some kid to do something.
No, we've definitely touched on a bunch of different random topics today.
No, for sure.
Again, I hope everyone enjoys our little football commentary at the beginning too. It was really fun to hear you chopping it about Tom Brady, even though I think Aaron Rodgers is better. But that's.
I mean, 7-1 says a lot.
I mean, and I can't argue the rings, but no, that this was a fun one for sure.
No, for sure. And subscribe, tell us how good of a job we're doing or how shitty of a job we're doing.
On a scale of Tom Brady to the person training at the park, let us fucking know how good we're doing on the pod.
Yeah,
hopefully we're somewhere in between.
Please let us know if we're like that jack fuck or not, but please, all the love, appreciate it. Thank y'all. And
all right, y'all.
The last podcast we had, I know it was our first one, and it seemed like we got a nice little startup, but appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far, God bless you. I hope you guys tune in for episode 3 coming soon. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. This has been your co-pilot, Quest Sparrow.
Movie Mike.
Streets.